The Dallas Mavericks look to end a 6-game losing streak when they travel to Atlanta to take on superstar Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. This is the gray area right here on Kevin Gray Sports. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, also at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to like and comment on this video once you subscribe to my channel. Really appreciate it. The Dallas Mavericks, of course, are on a 6-game losing streak, travel to take on Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young on this season averaging 26.9 points per game. Luka Doncic averaging 27.3 points per game on this season. The Atlanta Hawks are 5-5 at home, most recently losing to the Los Angeles Lakers on their home floor, 107-99. This is a guy in Trae Young who's averaging 9 assists on the season. Clint Capella shooting over 53% from the field, averaging nearly 16 points over his last 10 basketball games. Take on a Lloyd Pierce team, do the Dallas Mavericks, who find themselves 10-10 on the season, 5-5 at home, and 2-2 over their last 4 games. Meanwhile, the Dallas Mavericks, of course, are on a 6-game losing streak after losing 2 games at home to the Phoenix Suns, where Chris Paul and Devin Booker absolutely torched them and had 2 gut-wrenching, heartbreaking losses at the American Airlines Center. And this is a team that needs a win in the worst way due to the Dallas Mavericks, of course, the former home of one Tim Hardaway Jr. In their last 10 games overall, this is a Dallas Maverick team that's 2-8, only averaging 107 points in those 10 games. This is a team that finds itself in the bottom half of the NBA in terms of both offensive and defensive rating this season, and couple that with the 6-game losing streak. A lot of questions about what this team's mentality is. Here is what Coach Rick Carlisle had to say during his media availability.
Rick, obviously you guys would do the same thing on draft night in 2018 100 times out of 100, but are you a little surprised, or did you expect Trae Young to become the superstar level talent that he is now?
Yeah, I thought, he was, of the top 5 players, other than Luka, he was the guy that had a chance to be that kind of star player because of his ball skills, quickness, passing ability. And he just has a charismatic way of playing that has great magnetism. So I don't know that anybody would have predicted this, 39-16 over the last 5 games. But Atlanta certainly thought he was a special player. Travis is from Golden State, and they had, obviously a player with similar skills in Steph Curry. And I think that was one of the reasons they really liked him.
So Rick Carlisle understands the challenge that is before them in taking on a star in Trae Young, who, of course, is forever linked to Luka Doncic. Of course, back in the 2018 NBA draft, these two players were traded for one another in a trade that has obviously worked out for both teams. You got a guy in Trae Young who is a Steph Curry light, who continues to put himself in his own category, playing extremely good basketball, not only scoring the way that he is, but also getting his teammates involved. This is a team in the Atlanta Hawks who will be without Bogdan Bogdanovic, DeAndre Hunter, and others, but at the same time, guys like John Collins, obviously Clint Capella, who's playing well, and Trae Young really playing really good basketball for them, as this Hawks team right now is 10-10. Lloyd Pierce, one of the longtime assistants in the league, finally getting his shot as a head coach in the NBA, building something special down there in Atlanta, remaking that culture and what they are trying to build around their superstar in Trae Young. But this is a team in the Dallas Mavericks that finally played its first game of the season in its most recent loss to the Phoenix Suns with a full, healthy roster for the first time all season. You saw the reacclimation of Maxi Kleber back into this rotation for the Dallas Mavericks. He looks to be in the starting lineup, actually going to Atlanta when they take on the Atlanta Hawks. And you saw, even in the 2 losses that they had, the energy, the competitive juice seemed to be there in those 2 games. Obviously, the execution down the stretch for the Mavericks, especially in their most recent loss, was not good. They had an opportunity to give a foul to Devin Booker before he ultimately came off the screen and hit the 3 with 1.5 seconds left to hit the absolute game winner for the Phoenix Suns. They did not execute the details in terms of that late game situation and found themselves losing another game in clutch time. Those are the things and the margins between winning and losing in the NBA, and something that the Dallas Mavericks have found out the hard way throughout the season, whether it be a lack of attention to detail or focus on the defensive end with communication and breakdowns and assignments, the lack of energy in some nights in terms of playing on both ends of the floor. I think about the Utah series that they had just last week when they lost both of those games, when they were absolutely outplayed by Quinn Snyder's basketball team and the Utah Jazz, even without the services of Donovan Mitchell. This team has been up and down all season long, whether they're blowing out a team in the Los Angeles Clippers by 51 points or getting blown out themselves by the Utah Jazz in consecutive games, or not putting together the kinds of performances in clutch time that would give them the opportunity to win games by executing late down the stretch. I asked Jalen Brunson during his media availability, what is the message that this team is sending to one another about staying positive during this stretch when they have lost these 6 games in a row? Here's what Jalen Brunson had to say during his media availability about that message being communicated between him and his teammates. Hey, Jalen, how are you guys messaging to one another about getting through this tough stretch by staying together and trying to stay positive through this stretch here?
Exactly how you said. We got to stay together and stay positive. It's obviously not an easy stretch to go through, but we have guys that are upset. We have guys that want to win. And so I think that's the first step for us to want to get better. Now you just got to go out there, prove it to each other that, we're here for each other. So obviously a stretch nobody wants to be in, but we got to get out of it.
So Jalen Brunson echoing the sentiments that we've heard from Rick Carlisle, from Luka Doncic, and others, that they have to remain positive and continue to bring a new and renewed energy and focus night in and night out because of how difficult the stretch of games it has been for them. This is a team that's played several teams in the top 5 in terms of offensive and defensive rating, have the Dallas Mavericks this season, and they've played a very tough schedule. But after they get off the road in this game against Atlanta, they will have 7 consecutive games at home starting on Thursday when they take on the Golden State Warriors. And this is a golden opportunity for this Mavericks team to find a measure of consistency while also trying to get themselves back into it and at minimum getting back to 500. This is a team at 8-13 on the season, needs to string some wins together. And yes, for now, the psyche of this team is severely damaged, obviously, with a 6-game losing streak, dealing with the expectations that they had coming into the season, and obviously the adversity that they have dealt with the health and safety protocols. Another thing for this Mavs team, they have got to find a way to get Kristaps Porzingis going with respect to how he is gaining his rhythm early in basketball games. After the second loss to the Phoenix Suns, Kristaps Porzingis talked about the idea about getting into rhythm more early on in games by playing more minutes. I asked him about that after the game against the Phoenix Suns. Here's a reminder of what Kristaps Porzingis said about how he needs to get into rhythm early on in games to find himself playing much better throughout the entirety of basketball games. Here's Kristaps talking about that here. Hey, KP, kind of a 2-part question. After struggling in the first half, we're able to get it going in the fourth quarter. What changed as far as your offensive game in the fourth quarter? And what's the messaging about getting through this tough stretch and staying positive together throughout this stretch?
For me, what changed, I just played a little bit of a longer stretch. I think that gave me more time to get in a rhythm and get better looks and not rush things, which I tend to do a lot now that I'm playing shorter minutes. And that's something maybe I can communicate and so I'm not as out of rhythm early in the game, and then but I felt better, much better late in the game, and got some good looks and got into my rhythm. And then it's tough right now. Of course, nobody likes to lose, and we're just trying to get out of this as a group, grow from each game. But we're not content with where we at right now, and that's it. What can I say? We just got to get back to work, practice, stay locked in, and try to make a step forward in terms of our growth as a team.
So obviously, this is something that's going to be key going forward. The more minutes that Kristaps Porzingis plays, according to him, the better and more quickly he can get into rhythm on the offensive end and being able to stay engaged when scoring the basketball. You saw in the game against the Phoenix Suns, the second game, scored 10 points in the fourth quarter, seemed to be much more aggressive on the offensive end. And a lot of questions about whether or not Kristaps Porzingis should remain on this basketball team with the lack of consistency that he's played with on both ends of the floor, at times looking stiff on the defensive end and at times lacking aggression on the offensive end to try and be the second best scorer on this basketball team. Yes, they got Maxi Kleber back in terms of a 3-and-D guy who could shoot the ball from the three-point line and help defend. You saw some of that in his return against the Phoenix Suns, blocking his shot, being active on the defensive end. But they will need consistent scoring from not only Kristaps Porzingis, but also a guy, Tim Hardaway Jr., who the last time was in Atlanta had a 30-plus point game. So they need contributions from every single person on this basketball team. Dwight Powell, who did not play at all in the second game against the Phoenix Suns, was out of the rotation. Obviously, Rick Carlisle talking about the idea that there just wasn't any point in that particular game based on the rotations that he was running to get Dwight Powell in the basketball game. I don't expect him to not play games at all going into this extremely important portion of their schedule, especially when they play 7 games at home. But right now, this is a team in the Mavericks that need to win in the worst of ways, as I mentioned. In the bottom half of both offensive and defensive rating currently right now in the NBA, a team that's not shooting the ball well from the three-point line, dead last in the NBA shooting the ball from three, and needing to find that consistency once again from shooting the ball from the outside. I will say, though, Josh Richardson did play his best game of the season, scoring 24 points as he was ultra-aggressive throughout that game against the Phoenix Suns, getting to the paint, creating his own shot, looking for his own shot, just like Tim Hardaway was in that game. Those are the kinds of things that the Mavs will need from these contributors to go along with Luka Doncic, who's doing all that he can and everything that he can to try and help this team win basketball games, whether it be scoring, whether it be passing, rebounding. Luka Doncic needs some help, and he needs to get it from guys like Kristaps Porzingis and others. But they will have a tall task as they take on a guy in Trae Young who's been absolutely spectacular for this Atlanta Hawks basketball team and will have their hands full. This is a team in the Atlanta Hawks in their last 10 games averaging over 111 points per game, shooting 45% from the field while also getting 7 steals and nearly 5 blocks per game and averaging nearly 24 assists per game. This is a team that can share the basketball, can score the basketball, and more importantly, they've got a superstar in Trae Young that will look to set the tone and pace for this Atlanta Hawks team, taking on, of course, Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, 8-13 on the 6-game losing streak, try to snap that when they take on the Atlanta Hawks on Wednesday night, and Trae Young and this young Hawks basketball team. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to subscribe to my channel right here at Kevin Gray Sports. Like and comment on this video to let me know what you think about the Mavs season so far. This has been The Gray Area. We'll talk to you later. Peace.